The deadline for my thesis was looming, but the surrounding noise and clamor felt like a maddening hum in my head. As if compelled by some strange force, I dialed that special number, the one belonging to the junior who had been secretly following me, Sophia Taylor. Hello. Her voice was hoarse, as if she'd just woken up. I need an absolutely quiet place to finish my paper. I got straight to the point, my fingertips tapping the desk unconsciously. That confinement room you quietly prepared for me. Is it finished? Can I move in early? The receiver fell abruptly silent. Even her faint breathing disappeared. After what felt like an eternity, she hesitantly spoke. What a confinement room. Senior Ethan, I don't understand. I could almost picture how frozen she must be and couldn't help but chuckle softly. Don't play dumb. I've inspected the construction site several times and even went in to experience it. The soundproofing is top-notch. That was half truth, half lie, but it was enough to intimidate. Silence on the other end of the line became utterly vacuum-like. I waited a few seconds, then finally softened and reminded her, hey, remember to breathe. Don't hold yourself in. At last, a faint gasp came through, followed by her hoarse reply. Thanks. She even said thank you. That strange politeness made me laugh and cry at the same time. Let's get to the point. I steered us back. The double-degree thesis is suffocating me. I can't get a seat in the library. The dorm is noisy like a market. After thinking it over, that private space you made is the best fit. Spacious, quiet, cut off from the world. So, can I borrow it for a few days? It's really urgent. Okay. Her voice was as light as a sigh. This time she didn't deny the existence of the detention room. That confession was refreshingly straightforward. I teased. And your voice is pretty nice. She didn't respond to that, only asked, are you coming over now? I happen to know the address. I'll just grab a taxi. I'll drive you, it's more convenient. She blurted out. A warning bell rang faintly in my chest. A vein twitched on my forehead. Don't tell me you're hiding in some corner watching me right now. Sorry. Another apology. Enough. I cut her off. Where are you? You look back. My heart skipped a beat. I turned to look behind the nearby phoenix tree. A slender figure slowly stepped out. Sophia wore a plain white dress, a deep purple silk scarf tied around her neck. Sunlight was cut by the leaves, casting heavy shadows under her lowered lashes and revealing only the delicately contoured lower half of her face, porcelain smooth. So beautiful, beautiful to the point of danger. But a blinding scarlet flashed uncontrollably before my eyes, and the strong scent of rust instantly breached the dam of memory. It was her blood, the warm liquid that had stained my vision in my past life. When I steadied myself, she was already standing in front of me, obediently bowing her head. Fortune favors the bold. I must be even bolder. My gaze landed on the distinctive silver badge on her chest. I raised an eyebrow. This style? I think I have something similar. She wouldn't meet my eyes, the tips of her ears flushing red. It was custom-made, a pair of rings. Her voice was as thin as a mosquito's. The girl's secret thoughts were like a blade wrapped in sugar. My gaze slid down and landed on her clasped hands. The knuckles were evenly shaped, fair and delicate, but at this moment they were trembling slightly. Nervous? I asked. No, she reflexively objected, then corrected herself with a touch of annoyance. A little. Where's the car? The B2 level of the underground parking. I'll lead the way. Sophia's car was a royal blue sports car. Its smooth lines and the eye-catching trident emblem silently proclaimed a considerable value. I don't care for luxury cars, but that emblem felt like a thorn digging into an old scar. 8 years ago, my dad, George Johnson, briefly drove one of these. Ridiculously, his clumsy driving somehow got him a $30,000 a month job with every third day off as a driver. Unsurprisingly, he was later fired. I still can't understand why he, of all people, deserved that kind of slime. What's wrong? Sophia asked, noticing me staring at the car. Her voice edged with anxiety. Is there something wrong with the car? The car's fine. I shook my head. Just remembered something upsetting. She didn't press further, slid into the driver's seat, and started the engine. Tamran opened the passenger door, buckled her seatbelt, but she didn't press the gas pedal right away. Instead, she turned her face toward me, her expression complicated. You. How did you know about that room? She got stuck, obviously embarrassed to say the word. I finished it for her. The confinement room? She buried her head lower, like a cat waiting for judgment. As if by some unseen force, my hand reached out, fingertips lightly scratching her delicate chin. She froze instantly, her breath stopping. I withdrew my hand, leaned back against the chair, voice lazy with a smile. I thought you'd be more curious why I didn't call the police and instead went to supervise. Why? She did ask, just as I expected. But I only smiled and fell silent. The carriage sank into a subtle hush. Time passed, and I caught sight of tiny beads of sweat forming at the tip of her nose. It's okay if you don't want to say. Her voice was hoarse. Just don't hate me. I don't hate you, I said, looking at the cityscape rushing past the car window. It's just, I don't know where to begin. After all, according to the script, I was supposed to learn all of this at her funeral 6 months from now. 3 days ago, I regained consciousness in the center of the library hall. The dizziness and ringing in my ears receded like a tide, and the people around me looked like out-of-focus images. This isn't a rebirth. In my last life, the one who died in the car accident was Sophia, and the one who survived in a wheelchair was me. It's not a dream either. The bloody details in my memory are too clear and real. So, perhaps it's some kind of time-reversing travel? From her cold funeral back to this moment, the node before the storm has descended. The car finally drove into the foothills on the outskirts of Los Angeles. Amidst the verdant trees, a villa with clean lines gradually came into view. You have a good eye for places, I admired, looking at the layered greenery outside the window, quiet and secluded. Sophia's lips had just curved into a small smile when I leisurely added, perfect for hiding someone. She suddenly choked, and her ears flushed red. I couldn't help chuckling. Teasing her was simply too amusing. My gaze inadvertently swept over the wrist she had resting on the steering wheel. A silvery gray, fine chain wrapped around it, its style painfully familiar. It was the one I lost 6 months ago. This bracelet. My voice deepened slightly. Yes, she admitted immediately, and seeing my expression, she grew nervous. I'm sorry. I stared at the nape of her neck bowed low and sighed softly. Sophia. Sorry, is that your catchphrase? No. Then why do you keep apologizing to me? The one person in the world who should never have to apologize to me is clearly her. She was silent for a moment, her voice muffled. Because I did something bad. For example, like a pervert, afraid you'll be in danger, following you every day but not daring to get within 10 meters of you. Or I finished for her, like wanted to lock me up. Her fingertips tightened, knuckles whitening. That room. Safe house. I shifted tone, fixed up like a 5-star suite, but only dared to think about it, never dared to touch. She didn't deny it, voice thin as a thread. And I took your bracelet and secretly kept it without returning it. That contrast made my heart soften. Keep it. She suddenly looked up, her eyes like a pebble thrown into a lake, the broken light shimmering. Is that okay? I'll give it to you, I said. The smile that bloomed in that instant was so pure it dazzled, as if she had received the whole world. Propping his chin with one hand, I teased her on purpose. If you act like that, I might misunderstand that the place you're preparing is actually where you want me to lock you up. Sophia's ears flushed crimson in an instant, almost to the point of bleeding. She glanced at me quickly, her voice as light as a feather brushing by. If you want, it's not impossible. Nice idea, I said with mock seriousness, nodding. I'll think about it. The car stopped in front of the villa. Sophia's so-called safe house actually has its entrance underground, but once you step inside, it's not as oppressive as you'd imagine. A huge staircase leads downward, and the space is extraordinarily open. The most striking feature is overhead. The entire ceiling is set with a butterfly-shaped giant glass dome. Afternoon sunlight filters through the translucent wings, casting a flowing spray of golden spots across the interior, dreamlike and surreal. Do you like it? Sophia followed behind me, her voice tentatively probing, like a designer waiting for the client's approval. It's hard not to like it, I said, tilting my head to look at the play of light and shadow. The design is beautiful, her shoulders visibly relaxed, as long as you don't hate it. On rainy days and snowy days, the view from here is special too, she added softly, with a barely perceptible excitement. On clear nights, lying here you can see the whole sky of stars. How romantic, I said sincerely. It's very romantic. She agreed instinctively. He turned, his gaze falling on her slightly flushed cheeks, the corner of his mouth curling into a meaningful smile. Imagine, at night we're here, entwined to death, and when we look up we can see the Milky Way pouring down, That's romance to the bone, right? Sophia's face went crimson in an instant, like a ripe berry. He beckoned to her cheerfully with his finger. Though puzzled, she obediently moved closer. I leaned in, my warm breath brushing her ear, my fingertip lightly pressing against her chest. My dear designer, when you draw plans, didn't you ever fantasize like this? Watching her suddenly rapid breathing, I leisurely added, right, you thought you were the one in control, so of course you couldn't see it. Now that I'm taking the initiative, can you see clearly? My words burn her so intensely, she can barely stand. I take advantage of the moment and push her down onto the large, soft couch in the room. The golden butterflies above our heads enveloped us, like some invisible bond. Sophia's breathing had completely gone awry, yet her body obediently accepted me. Her long lashes trembled violently like a dying butterfly's wings, and a tempting flush quickly spread over her neck and collarbones. Truly, a feast for the eyes, just as I leaned down, about to seize that softness. The jarring phone ringtone exploded abruptly. The idyllic moment shattered. Sophia and I frowned at the same time. A string of unfamiliar, yet vaguely familiar numbers flashed on the screen. A bad premonition rose. I pressed the answer button, and a drunken, coarse-as-sandpaper male voice roared. You little brat. I'm out of money. Send the money over now. It's George Johnson, my biological father, a tumor in my life. This wasn't the first time he'd asked for money, and of course I'd never given him a cent, just as he'd never paid a penny in child support. A get lost was on the tip of my tongue, but when I caught Sophia's instant, icy look, I flicked my finger and hit speakerphone. Don't act innocent with me. If you worked a few more jobs at school, ate worse, and wore threadbare clothes, wouldn't you save some money? George's filthy words echoed through the empty space via the speaker, reeking of bile-inducing booze. Sophia's face visibly took on a chill, a storm brewing in her eyes. George was still shouting, "Get me off the blacklist now. Damn it, I have to borrow someone else's phone to call you. You piece of trash." The three words, piece of trash, registered in my ear without a ripple. But the hand Sophia had resting by her side suddenly clenched tightly, her knuckles whitening. I mentally lit a candle for George. He's done for. Ethan, George continued his instruction. Hurry up and change that damn name back for me. You're my son. Why are you taking that short-lived mother surname? Since ancient times, children follow the father's name. Those who take the mother's name are ungrateful to their ancestors. Enough. I cut him off coldly, like shooing away rotten flies. George Johnson, a feudal fossil, like you should stay quietly in his coffin and not crawl out to pollute the air. Your mouth stinks. It's choking people. George flew into a rage. The sky will fall. It's only right for a father to discipline his son. How dare you? Before he could finish, I snapped him off and blocked him. The scene was deathly silent. I pulled Sophia back into my arms, my fingertips unconsciously twisting a soft strand of her hair, like soothing a ruffled cat. I changed my name to Ethan not long before my mom died of stomach cancer. My voice was calm, as if talking about someone else. The day she died, I stood by the river. I wanted to jump in and end it all. But by chance, I ended up saving a girl who was also about to jump. The body in my arms stiffened almost imperceptibly. I continued. Irony, right? You don't even want to live, yet when you see someone fall into the water, your body is faster than your brain, and you jump in to save them. Because you're kind. Her muffled voice came from my chest. It was my mom who raised me well. She shook her head slightly. Even the best parents can raise bad kids. You're good because you're good at your core. I laughed, looking down at her. Sophia, your filter must be as thick as a city wall, right? It's the truth. She looked up, her gaze clear, a faint smile at the corner of her lips like the first snow melting, stunningly beautiful. In that moment, I distinctly heard my heartbeat fall out of rhythm. Over the next few days, I moved into Sophia's villa. The underground safe house became my perfect fortress for writing my thesis. Sophia was astonishingly considerate. She never appeared in my line of sight while I was working, but whenever I took a short break, fruit, hot tea, and delicate little pastries would just so happen to appear carrying that cool, faint fragrance she always had. Good mornings and good nights were never missing. That evening, Sophia unusually hesitated. I'm going away for 2 days tomorrow. She paused, as if making a big decision. Before you go, want to have a meal together? I knew she was going to deal with the mess George had made. My gaze flicked to the bottle of decanted red wine in the center of the table, but my stomach churned for no reason. Okay, I agreed, then added, but I don't drink red wine. Sophia froze mid-movement. I remember, you even drank with your roommate on New Year's. She remembered very clearly. I used to like her. I leaned back in my chair, avoiding her gaze. Not anymore. Why? She pressed, her voice carrying a barely noticeable tension. Why? Because that crimson liquid looked so much like blood. I closed my eyes. The strong scent of rust still seems to linger in my nostrils. It was her warm life poured out for me. I remained silent, offering no explanation. I'm sorry. Her voice drops, touched with obvious helplessness, like a child who has done something wrong. My heart softened inexplicably. I took a breath and eased my expression. It's nothing, just a personal habit. If there's white wine, could you please change my glass? Her tense shoulders visibly relaxed. Not a problem. Whatever you need. She looked up at me, her gaze serious to the point of stubbornness. I can do it all. Dinner was over, and the night was as dark as ink. Sophia left with several silent, compact men. I watched that slender figure, yet one that radiated a sharp fierceness, disappear through the doorway and blurted, "Sophia." She turned her head, and the mountain night breeze lifted a few strands of her hair. Come back early. 1,000 words condensed into a single admonition. The corner of her mouth curved slightly as she nodded. As soon as Sophia left, I quickly changed into sharp clothes and followed her out. How could I miss George's curtain call? But just as I stepped out of the villa gate, I ran into someone unexpected. A black sedan with sharp lines glided to a silent stop. The car door opened, and a woman stepped out. Her black hair was fastidiously tied back. She wore a well-tailored dark coat, and although her face was well-maintained, it carried the aloofness and sharpness of someone long accustomed to high position. She reached out her hand to me, her movement concise and firm. Hello, I'm Clare Taylor, Sophia's mother. I was slightly taken aback, then reached out and shook her hand back. Ethan Johnson. I had a very good impression of Clare. In my previous life, after Sophia died, it was this woman who, having lost her only daughter, stifled her grief, stayed by my hospital bed to comfort my seriously wounded self, and arranged a psychologist for me. She said that if Sophia watches over us from heaven, she would surely want me to live well. I have always remembered this affection. At this moment, her gaze was like a torch, scanning me up and down. Only after confirming I was unharmed did she let out a barely noticeable sigh of relief. It seems she hasn't done anything irrevocably foolish. She refers to Sophia. She's very good, I said instinctively in her defense. Claire's lips curved slightly, with a hint of insight. Did you know she's been investigating you down to the smallest detail these past 2 days? I guessed. I nodded calmly. That hands-free call was a knife I had handed her. She doesn't delegate. Claire's voice chilled slightly. That underground room was designed stroke by her, and she supervised its completion in person. Do you know what that means? I met her scrutinizing gaze. It means her possessiveness is so intense, she needs a physical space to contain it. A flicker of surprise crossed Claire's eyes, then she nodded. You're perceptive, but excessive possessiveness often leads to destruction in the end. Her voice dropped, carrying a heavy, penetrating weight. Sophia is my daughter. I know her better than anyone. She's not like ordinary people, more like a patient. I frowned, about to object, but she stepped forward, leaned close to my ear, her voice so low it was barely more than a whisper, carrying the weary tone of someone who's been through it. I used to be like her, a mad woman trapped in a mental prison. What I want to warn you is that the meek restraint she shows before you now is not her true nature. It is a suppressed volcano. One day, when it erupts, its lava will burn you and might even consume her, even if that wasn't her intention. She straightened and handed me a minimalist business card. The material was icy to the touch. If you ever feel suffocated and need to get away, find me. Her gaze seemed to look through me, seeing some distant shadow. I'll help you. After speaking, she didn't look at me again. She got into the car and left with decisive movements. The engine growled low, and the black sedan quickly melted into the night like a wind that sweeps away fallen leaves, leaving no trace. Clutching that cold business card, I stood in the deepening dusk, feelings complicated and hard to express. Claire's words were like a stone thrown into a lake, the ripples spreading outward. At the molten gold hour of sunset, I held a high-powered telescope and locked onto Sophia's convoy from the top floor of the villa. The location was a rundown, soon-to-be-demolished old district in West Los Angeles, desolate and dilapidated. Bodyguards dragged George, slick with mud, out of the car and threw him onto the pitted concrete. Sophia stepped out, a deep purple silk scarf fluttering slightly in the evening breeze. She reached back, and someone immediately handed her a pair of black gloves, as thin as cicada wings. George looked at the bodyguard who had handed over the gloves, his eyes widening in terror. "It's you? I didn't wreck that car. Didn't you say back then you wouldn't pursue it?" He babbled incoherently, clearly recognizing him. The bodyguard was expressionless, only looking at Sophia. A cold arc lifted the corner of Sophia's mouth as she leisurely put on her gloves. Every movement exuded an elegant cruelty. "George Johnson, that plum job I gave you back then was for you to take care of him." Her voice wasn't loud, but it was like a needle quenched in ice, piercing the seams of George's bones. "Obviously, you messed it up." I crept closer, hidden behind the broken wall at the end of the alley. Sophia's words sent a shock through me. So the brief, spectacular job George had gotten years ago was arranged by her. "You should be grateful I considered his feelings at the time and didn't thoroughly investigate the people around him." Sophia lowered her eyes, her fingertips brushing the smooth surface of the glove, her voice suddenly icy. "Otherwise, with all the rotten things you've done, you would have been rotting in the mud a long time ago." George shrank back in fear, but was held down tightly by the bodyguards. "Now scared, are you?" Sophia stepped closer, looking down on him. "Weren't you so loud and fierce on the phone?" She raised her hand, moving so fast it left an afterimage. Smack! A loud slap landed hard across George's face. The force was so great that his head snapped to the side, the corner of his mouth splitting as a thread of blood welled up. "Your wife cheated while pregnant." Smack! Another, harsher slap. George's howl was yanked back into his throat. "Drinking, gambling, using drugs? Making a scene at your ex-wife's workplace, beating her into the hospital, forcing her to flee her home with a 2-year-old son." Every time Sophia spoke, she slapped him hard. The crisp smacks echoed in the silent alley, and the smell of blood began to spread. Her white gloves gradually became stained with glaring red spots. George's face quickly swelled and distorted, blood mixed with saliva running down. The bodyguards' faces all turned grave. Sophia acted as if she hadn't seen, suddenly yanking off the purple silk scarf at her neck, wrapping it once around her fingers, and jerking it tight around George's throat. Her hands tightened with force. George's eyes bulged, and a dying huff-huff sounded from his throat, his face turning a purplish hue. The bodyguards' faces changed drastically. If she tightened it any more, someone would really die. What a pity about that scarf. I sighed, stepping out of the shadows. At the sound of my voice, Sophia's body froze instantly. The tightened grip went limp in an instant. She snatched the scarf back as if burned, hiding the blood-stained hand behind her, while trying to use her body to shield the limp, muddy George. She looked at me pale-faced. "Senior Ethan, what are you doing here?" "Watching a show." I stepped in front of her, my gaze sweeping over the hand she was hiding, and incidentally, in case you got carried away. She pressed her lips together, like a child caught doing something wrong, and silently stepped aside. I crouched in front of George. The sharp stench of blood hit my nose, and my stomach churned. It was the same mark of fear that Sophia's blood had once left on me. Suppressing the discomfort, I checked quickly. Thankfully, they were all external wounds. "My mother," I said as I stood up, my voice hard. "I just found out." Before I finished speaking, I raised my hand, summoned all my strength, and slapped George hard across the face. Smack! This slap was harsher and louder than the one Sophia had given. George was stunned by it, not even able to make a sound. The bodyguards nearby were all shocked and simultaneously turned to look at Sophia. Sophia just looked at me, her gaze deep, her lips pressed tight. I took out a packet of disinfectant wipes and carefully wiped each finger, as if they had been stained with some fatal filth. When I finished, I turned to leave, but my wrist was grabbed by a cool, slightly trembling hand. "Don't go." Her voice was tinged with panic. "Just throwing away the trash." I shook the wet white package in my hand. She exhaled, loosened her grip, her fingertips still trembling faintly. I tossed the wet wipe into the distant trash can, turned back to her, and opened my arms. Sophia practically jumped into my embrace, her arms clamping tightly around my waist as if she wanted to meld into my body. I wrapped my arms around her, stroked her back, then gently lifted the hand she was wearing a black glove on. Does your hand hurt? No. She shook her head, tilted her face up, eyes shimmering with moisture. Are you angry with me? Angry that you took care of George? I chuckled. That call was always meant for you to overhear. My fingertips brushed the corner of her blood-stained scarf. It's just a shame about it. I rubbed the top of her soft head. Sophia, I'll never be angry with you, because I know better than anyone how much you care about me. On the way back, the night had deepened. The car was thick with a faint metallic scent of blood and silence. That luxury car, I suddenly said, was the one I wrecked back then, to get back at George. Sophia drove, her profile flickering under the streetlights, her voice calm and even. It's just one car. If it's broken, it's broken. She turned her head to glance at me, the corner of her mouth curling into a gentle smile. As long as you're happy. Seeing her smile, that image of the funeral stain with blood flashed through my mind again. I couldn't help asking, Sophia, why do you like me so much? A blush rose on her cheek, and the fingers on the steering wheel tightened. The car slowly stopped at the mountain viewing platform. I waited for her answer, but my gaze unintentionally swept out the window. A hunched man with sunken eyes and a sallow, grayish face was staggering by. My heart dropped hard. That face, I would never forget it even if I died. The killer who ran over and killed Sophia in my last life. What's wrong? Sophia noticed my oddness. I forced down the rising murderous intent and pointed out the window. That man. Sophia followed my gaze and her tone chilled. Michael Johnson, George's illegitimate son. His mother was that mistress back then who died in childbirth. I forced a bitter smile. Thanks for not saying he's my brother. He doesn't deserve that, Sophia said with disgust. I examined Michael more closely. I had seen him once years ago, a dark, chubby kid. Now he was skin and bones, like an addict at death's door. That's a big change. What good can you learn from following George? Sophia started the car, her voice full of disdain. Drinking, gambling, drug addiction, living upside down day and night. Neither fully human nor a ghost. The nasty things he does, I said, looking at Sophia, are far more than that, right? She said, eyes on the road, tone flat. I'm afraid they'd dirty your ears. Someone like him. I asked softly, watching Michael's silhouette disappear into the night. Isn't it too dangerous to leave him outside? Sophia glanced at me, a sharp light flickering in her eyes. You want him brought inside. Where he belongs is not out there, I said. A cold smile curved at Sophia's lips, one that matched my thoughts. You're right. Returning to the villa, stepping into that underground space bathed in golden butterfly wings, I oddly felt a sense of coming home. I was about to speak when Sophia's phone rang. She answered, her expression shifting slightly. Mom? Okay, I'll be right over. After hanging up, she looked at me. My mom's looking for me. Go ahead. I nodded, thinking of the diary kept in the study, and said casually, I'll go upstairs to read. The books in your study. I can look at them, right? The whole house. You can go wherever you want. She looked at me, her gaze clear. The books on the shelves, you can read them all. Okay. I smiled. After Sophia left, I went straight up to the study on the second floor. My eyes swept precisely over row upon row of spines and landed on a notebook with a deep brown leather cover in the corner. A familiar line of English was embossed on the cover. Life is an open field. Life is like a wilderness. I picked it up, my fingertips brushing that line. What was Sophia thinking when she engraved those words? Just as I opened the first page, my gaze was drawn to the scene downstairs outside the floor-to-ceiling window. Claire's car was parked by the pool. She sat in a white, wrought-tan chair, and Sophia stood in front of her, head bowed. The distance was too great. The glass provided excellent soundproofing. But I can read lips. Claire's voice, lip-reading, you have to make a choice, Sophia. While things are still controllable, let Ethan go, or let yourself go. Sophia's body went noticeably rigid. Claire, lip-reading. One day in the future, if he looks at a flower for more than 3 seconds, you will want to destroy the whole garden, so his gaze belongs only to you. I know you, because in your bones flows the same blood as mine. Sophia's lips were pressed white. Claire rose, lip-reading. I don't want to see you repeat my mistakes. Love is not a prison. If you truly love him, you must give him freedom. She handed over something the size of a business card, lip-read. If one day you can't control yourself, or he wants to leave, find me. Claire gave Sophia one last look, then turned and walked to her car. The engine started with no hesitation and it sped away. Only Sophia remained by the pool, standing like a statue, motionless for a long time. I withdrew my gaze and looked down at the diary in my hands. Page 2. Familiar handwriting came into view. Sophia's diary. Year, X month, X day, X Saturday, overcast father is finally gone. Am I relieved? Perhaps. But on his deathbed, he was still calling mother's name. I don't understand. That year, every time they met, it was like they were torturing each other, the air full of exhaustion and pain. I brought his ashes to the riverbank. He said this was the place that sealed their love and told me to scatter him there. So I did. The river was freezing. Maybe severe depression really is contagious? I jumped in. Then I was pulled back out. The boy who saved me was drenched, his hair still dripping. He panted and asked me, "Why couldn't you think it through?" I said, "I lost my father." He was silent for a few seconds, then suddenly laughed, a bit self-mocking. "What a coincidence. I lost my mother. I actually came here to die too." I was stunned. "So, do you still want to die now?" He wiped the water from his face, tilted his head to the gloomy sky, and said, "Saving a life is worth more than building a 7-story pagoda. Heaven owes me some good days, right? So I'm not dying." He reached out his hand to me, his palm warm. "And you? Still planning to die?" "Don't waste the merit I just accumulated." Looking into his astonishingly bright eyes, I, compelled by some strange force, grabbed his hand. "Fine, then I won't die either." Year, X month, X day, X Sunday, cloudy, I saw him again. At the street corner, he was rummaging through a trash bin, picking up plastic bottles. How could he be living so miserably? Where are the merits from saving him? Swallowed by heaven? Year, X month, X day, X Tuesday, sunny, the stairwell was crowded after class. He was bumped and staggered toward me. I instinctively reached out and steadied his arm. So thin. He regained his balance, saw my military training uniform, and smiled, saying, "Thanks, Junior." This was the first sentence he said to me in the many years after he had saved me. He didn't recognize me. My heartbeat seemed, from that day on, to never return to normal. Year, X month, X day, X Wednesday. Clare, give this diary a name. I'll use the phrase I long for most. Life is an open field. Life is like a boundless plain. May we all be free to follow our hearts. Sitting at Sophia's wide desk, I turned the pages one by one. Flowing between the lines were the attentions born of a chance meeting, the steady gaze built over time, and the helpless surrender into obsession. Those details I had overlooked, those moments she treasured, like countless tiny streams, finally converged into a sea that drowned me. It turned out that in the years I hadn't known about, she had already been watching me for so long, so intently. In the silent study, only the sound of pages turning remained, and my own heartbeat growing clearer and clearer. When my fingertips brushed over certain lines, I unexpectedly felt a faint, cool dampness. I don't know how much time passed before very light footsteps sounded behind me. I closed the diary, put it back in its place, and turned around. Sophia stood in the doorway, quietly watching me. Her expression was different. No longer the shy, uneasy submissiveness from before, but settled into something more complex, calm as still water. Outside the window, dark clouds churned like ink. A mountain rain was coming. "Tonight," she said suddenly, her voice steady, "you sleep in the master bedroom upstairs. I'll sleep in the guest room." I frowned slightly. "Reason?" She lowered her eyelids, avoiding my gaze. "I think the room underground is not good." I was silent for a moment, then nodded. Indeed, no matter how beautiful the gilded cage, it doesn't change the fact that it was designed as a prison. Sophia's face instantly went as pale as paper. Before her "I'm sorry" slipped out, I cut in and asked, "What are you going to do with it?" "Seal it away." "Fair enough." I looked out the window as a ghastly flash of lightning ripped the night sky, and thunder rolled in. Late at night, thunder split the heavens and the rain poured down. I woke from a nightmare, drenched in sweat, the harsh screech of brakes and the muffled crunch of bones still echoing in my ears, the thick metallic smell of blood choking my throat. The night of the crash had been a cataclysmic storm just like this. My hands trembled badly, barely able to hold my phone. The screen lit up, and I instinctively dialed Sophia's number. It was answered after just one ring. "Senior Ethan?" Her voice was clear, taut with anxious concern. His throat tightened. He couldn't speak. "Wait for me." Her voice was decisive. "Don't hang up. I'm coming right away." Almost as soon as the words left my mouth, hurried footsteps sounded down the corridor. The door was pushed open, and Sophia burst in carrying the chill of the rainy night. The ends of her hair still dripped. She crossed to the bedside in a few strides, her cool palm pressing against my forehead. Not a fever. She breathed a sigh of relief, her voice softening. Wait a moment. She turned and brought back a cup of warm water, with a little honey dissolved in it. The sweet scent slightly dispelled the gloom of the nightmare. She helped me sit up and carefully brought the rim of the cup to my lips. I drank obediently. The warm water slid down my throat and drove away some of the chill. Go to sleep, she said, tucking in my blanket, then sat down at the bedside. I'll stay here. In the dim light, her profile was calm and gentle. The dazed feeling of having survived the calamity hadn't yet faded, but a deeper flutter quietly began to grow. Sophia. I called her softly. She answered at once, staring at her lips, barely parted, his voice still hoarse. I want to sleep with you. The air suddenly froze. Sophia's cheeks blazed crimson in an instant, like a flame ignited. But this time, she didn't shy away in embarrassment. Instead, she lifted her eyes, and her gaze met mine directly. There was so much settled in her eyes, so calm it made my chest tighten. Ethan, she said, her voice steady yet penetrating, what exactly am I to you? I was taken aback. A pursuer who fits your desires and can be used whenever you need a vent, she pressed, each word clear. Or someone who makes you feel guilty and grateful. A savior who needs compensation. Thunder rumbled outside, lighting up the fathomless pool in her eyes. These past few days, your attitude toward me has been strange, she continued, not giving me a chance to breathe. Ever since that call from the library you took the initiative to make, it's been like you're following some preset script. You plan to be nice to me, to get close to me, even to accept my dark side. Why? My heart felt as if an invisible hand had squeezed it tight. She had seen through me. I crave your closeness, like a desert traveler longing for a mirage, so I never dared to expose it. Her voice dropped, carrying a touch of bitter self-mockery, but tonight's thunderstorm reminded me of some possible pieces of the future. I suddenly understood that the moon falling into my arms isn't because of pity, nor because of liking or love. She paused, her gaze burning as it fixed on me. Ethan, do you love me? Love? The word was like a stone thrown into a deep pool, stirring 1,000 ripples across the lake of my heart. Do I like Sophia? Without a doubt. I adore her persistence. I adore the bashfulness she displays because of me. I adore her clumsiness and sincerity in front of me. But love? Love is a deeper, weightier commitment than affection. It is the resonance and surrender of souls. I fell silent. That silence, amid the sound of thunder and rain, felt unbearably long and heavy. The light in Sophia's eyes dimmed little by little as I fell silent, eventually settling into a calm, almost mournful clarity. You don't love me, she answered for me, her voice dry as sandpaper. At first it was just pity for a poor wretch, then that pity became mixed with fondness. But from beginning to end, you never loved me. Her fingertips brushed my cheek lightly, with a tenderness like a farewell. That might be a mercy for me, but it's not fair to you. I shouldn't bind you because of my love and my rescue. I want you to love Ethan as a person, not to feel obliged to repay me with yourself because I saved you. Her voice grew clearer and firmer, as if to pierce wind and rain. If being loved or being saved is enough to force you together, what then? If one day you're in danger and the person who saves you isn't me, but someone else, someone who loves you more than I do, who's better and more worthy of you, what will you do? If you love her, I'll be sad. But if you give up loving her for my sake, I'll feel it's a pity for you. Love shouldn't be a shackle, nor should it be a compensation for guilt. My heart was wrenchingly tightened, my throat choked. My mother told me to leave you. She feared I would destroy you and ultimately destroy myself. Sophia gave a bitter smile, but she didn't know that after witnessing the tragedy between her and father, I would never repeat the same mistake. Letting you go is not the only desperate path available to me. An astonishing light suddenly flared in her eyes, like a stubborn spark kindled in boundless darkness. I can change myself. I want to stand in the light and embrace you, not pull you into the shadows to embrace me. I don't want you to have to accommodate me. I was drawn to you for who you are, falling in love with you step by step. I hope the future you will be the same. Choose to be with me because your heart is moved, not out of pity. I hope you can truly fall in love with me. And then she inhaled deeply, each word falling with weight. And then, love only me forever. A stark white lightning split the night outside, instantly illuminating her pale, yet stubborn face. Thunder rolled in, making the glass vibrate with a hum. When she finished speaking, she simply looked at me quietly, waiting for my answer. In her eyes was the resolute desperation of a last throw, and a faint, scarcely perceptible fragile plea. The sound of wind and rain seemed to fade away at that moment. I looked at her, at this girl who had silently watched me in her diary for years, who had risked everything for me, and who was now straining with all her might to break free from her own chains and come to me. The agitation and guilt churning in my heart because of not loving were suddenly overlaid by another emotion, more surging and more feverish. I reached out and pulled her in my arms, hard and tight. Her body froze first, then began to tremble violently. Her arms clung tightly around my waist, like a drowning person grasping the only piece of driftwood. My jaw pressed against the crown of her head. I could clearly feel her heart pounding like a drum, and I could hear the same erratic beating within my own chest. "All right," I whispered the promise in her ear. The sound was swallowed by the thunderstorm, yet it was perfectly clear. "All right." In the days that followed, Sophia became unusually busy. Apart from the necessary 3 meals, I rarely saw her in the villa. In the study, those abstruse and difficult psychology books multiplied, filling the desk and corners. My 2 graduation theses also entered their final sprint. On the morning of the graduation defense, I opened the bedroom window and found a white rose strewn with dew and a simple, elegant card quietly lying on the windowsill. On the card was her graceful handwriting. "Good luck." Thanks to her blessing, the defense went extremely smoothly, and both papers received excellent evaluations. When leaving school, the crowd was noisy. Familiar and unfamiliar faces surged forward to offer congratulations, and my roommates even clamored for me to treat them. Amid the clamor, I looked up and saw Sophia standing apart from the crowd beneath the phoenix tree. She wore a simple white dress, no scarf tied around her neck. The morning light fell on her, outlining a cool and upright silhouette. The gloom and unease that once lingered around her brows and eyes, like mist driven off by sunlight, had faded considerably. She stood there quietly, her gaze cutting through the crowd, resting on only me. I pushed through the noisy throng, stepping toward her one step at a time. Sophia watched me approach. My figure was clearly reflected in her clear eyes, with a trace of nervousness, but more so a certain calm, resolve born of settling. She pressed her lips together, as if gathering up her courage. A few seconds later, she finally spoke, her voice low but clearly cutting through the surrounding noise. "Ethan Sr. Could you give me a chance to get to know you again, to spend time with you?" I raised an eyebrow slightly. "I thought you'd just ask. Would you be my boyfriend?" A flush rose on her cheek, but she didn't back down. "I thought about it, but I feel it's not enough yet." "Not enough of what?" "Not enough to let you truly know who I am now." She looked at me, her gaze bright and sincere. "I want to invite you to wait for the sunrise with me on the mountaintop, to watch the sunset together by the sea, to go to the amusement park and ride roller coasters with you, to go to the cinema and see a movie we both like. I want you, through all the little moments we spend together, to truly come to like the feeling of being with me." She paused, took a deep breath, eyes burning. "Then I'll ask you, Ethan, will you be my boyfriend?" Sunlight slipped through the sycamore leaves and danced on the ends of her hair. The breeze carried the scent of summer grass. I watched this girl who had shed her paranoid gloom, awkward yet utterly sincere as she walked toward me. In the wilderness of my heart, called fur stirrings, it was as if a sudden bloom of brilliant flowers had opened everywhere. He smiled, reached out, and his fingertips lightly brushed her soft hair. Of course, our gazes tangled, and I could clearly feel that seed called love in my chest breaking through the soil. "Sophia," I said, my voice carrying a tenderness and certainty I hadn't even noticed in myself. "I think I'm really going to fall in love with you."